Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're joining us today because we are tackling what is, honestly, one of the most fascinating and kind of misunderstood subjects in all of psychology. Today, we're going to demystify what human intelligence truly is, looking straight at the hard science behind the mind. We are moving way beyond just a single test score to uncover the brilliant, complex reality of human brain power.
Okay, let's just dive right in. Here's our roadmap. We'll start with what is intelligence, then decode intelligence theories, look at measuring the mind, explore the nature-nurture interplay, and wrap up with culture and emotional intelligence.
Now, before we get into the heavy science, I want you to do something for me. Just answer this question in your head. Who is the absolute most intelligent person you know? Picture them right now. You got them in your mind's eye? Good. Now, I really want to challenge you to think about exactly why you chose that specific person. Is it because they have this massive vocabulary, or because they can solve crazy math equations in their head? Or is it maybe because they just always seem to know exactly how to navigate really complex social situations? Hold on to that thought.
Part 1. What is intelligence?
So, true intelligence, at least as it's understood by psychologists, is actually pretty different from our everyday common sense notion of just, being good at school or knowing a ton of trivia. Take a look at this definition by David Wessler. His tests are literally some of the most widely used in the world today. He defined intelligence as the global and aggregate capacity of an individual to think rationally, act purposefully, and to deal effectively with their environment. The absolutely crucial point here is that intelligence isn't just raw, static knowledge sitting in your brain. It is deeply rooted in functionality. It's all about how you adapt to your environment, how you solve real-world problems, and how you act with purpose.
Section 2. Decoding intelligence theories.
Over the last century, psychologists have been trying to box this incredibly vast concept into workable theories. Let's trace how that evolved. Back in 1905, Alfred Binet started with a simple unifactor theory, basically the idea of one general pool of intelligence. Then in 1927, Charles Spearman noticed a G factor, which is a general, underlying cognitive ability, alongside S factors, which are specific skills for individual things like math or verbal tasks. But as we move into the modern era, things get so much more nuanced. By 1985, Robert Sternberg introduced his triarchic theory, and then in 1994, the PASS model gave us this really complex information processing view of the mind.
And of course, we can't talk about theories without mentioning Howard Gardner. He completely shattered the myth that intelligence is just one single thing. I mean, look at this list. Linguistic, logical mathematical, spatial, musical, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. It's wild, right? Someone might be an absolute musical genius, but totally struggle with logical mathematics. Another person might be deeply attuned to the natural world, or possess incredible bodily kinesthetic awareness, like a professional athlete. Intelligence is incredibly multidimensional.
And this brilliantly illustrates Robert Sternberg's triarchic theory, which handles that complexity so well. Think of this model like the engine units of your mind. You have the competential subtheory, which specifies the actual cognitive processes that underlie your behavior, basically the gears turning. Then you have the experiential subtheory, which is how your past experiences affect your intelligence, and vice versa. And finally, the contextual subtheory specifies how you adapt to or even shape your specific cultural environment to actually accomplish your goals.
Now, another really powerful modern framework is the PASS model. This one views intellectual activity as the interdependent functioning of three neurological systems. Think of them as the building blocks of the mind. Step 1 is arousal and attention. This basically wakes the brain up so it can focus on a stimulus. Step 2 is coding, or processing, where your brain actually digests and integrates that information. And step 3 is planning, which is what allows you to act on that processed information, formulate a strategy, and evaluate your success.
Section 3. Measuring the mind.
Okay, so it's one thing to have all these abstract theories, right? But how do scientists actually calculate them into hard, cold numbers? Well, I am sure you've all heard the term IQ. It stands for intelligence quotient. This famous formula was devised way back in 1912 by a German psychologist named William Stern. It's pretty straightforward. You take a person's mental age, which is determined by how they perform on standardized tests compared to their peers, divided by their actual biological, chronological age, and multiply the whole thing by 100. Now that multiplier of 100, that's just a neat little mathematical trick to avoid dealing with messy decimal points. So, if a 10-year-old thinks at the level of an average 12-year-old, their IQ is 120.
Now, what's really fascinating about this is how these scores map out across the entire human population. As you can see, this is the classic bell curve, or normal distribution. The average IQ score is perfectly centered right there at 100. And I just want to casually reassure you, the vast majority of us sit right there in that massive middle bulge. Only a very, very small percentage of people fall into the extreme outer edges of the curve.
To give you a bit more context, let's take a quick look at this table summarizing the classifications. If you score between 90 and 110, you're considered to have average or normal intelligence. Once you dip below 70, psychologists begin to look at potential intellectual deficiencies or learning challenges. On the flip side, scoring above 130 puts you in the very superior category, which indicates exceptional talents. But keep in mind, guys, this is just one specific metric.
Section 4. The nature-nurture interplay.
This brings us to a massive, age-old debate. Where does intelligence actually come from? For decades, people argued relentlessly over whether we are born smart or if we become smart. Well, today, there's a pretty solid consensus among psychologists that it's a deeply complex interplay of both. Nature, our heredity, gives us a biological range. It basically sets our ultimate potential. But our environment, our nurture, dictates exactly where we land within that range. Things like rich nutrition, a supportive family background, and quality schooling, those are the environmental factors that pull us right up to our maximum genetic potential.
Part 5. Culture and Emotional Intelligence.
As we enter our final segment, let's just slow down for a second and reflect on how our society actually shapes our minds. The Russian psychologist Vygotsky had this profound insight. He said that culture provides the social context that specifies what successful intellectual development even looks like. Notice the brilliant contrast here. In technologically advanced Western cultures, intelligence is very often equated with technological intelligence. We're talking analysis, speed, personal achievement. But in many non-Western cultures, intelligence is heavily viewed through the lens of social and emotional skills, self-reflection, and how well you actually relate to the collective group. So intelligence is not entirely universal. It's heavily shaped by what a culture needs to survive and thrive.
And that beautifully introduces the concept of emotional intelligence, or EQ. People with high emotional intelligence can accurately perceive their own feelings. They are highly sensitive to the emotions of others around them, and most importantly, they can relate those emotions to their thoughts to effectively solve problems. This is a massive factor in how we adapt and succeed in life, going so far beyond what any traditional paper and pencil test could ever measure.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. Which of the two, IQ or EQ, do you think is more related to success in life? Think back to that person you pictured at the very beginning. Were they successful because of their cognitive speed, their emotional depth, or maybe a really beautiful blend of both? Our minds are wildly complex, and understanding them is this incredible ongoing journey. Keep exploring, keep learning,